Welcome to Podcast on the Brink, your weekly dose of Indiana basketball news and discussion, brought to you by the Assembly Call and Inside the Hall. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. Join me live at assemblycall.com every Thursday night and immediately following every IU game for our live IU postgame show. And visit InsideTheHall.com for complete coverage of IU basketball and to join the discussion in the Inside the Hall Premium Forum. On this week's edition of Podcast on the Brink, Alex Bozich and I are joined all the way from Germany by a guy who went 8 of 10 from downtown yesterday in a professional game. How nice would it be to have that ability back on the team right now? But it's one of our favorite recurring guests, Jordan Hulls, who is here. And, I reached out to Jordan a couple weeks ago to set this interview up because it struck me that he is one of the recent IU graduates who is really uniquely qualified to talk about some of the things that this year's team is going through. Jordan's freshman year, they lost 10, 11 games in a row. His sophomore year, they ended the season on an 8-9 game losing streak. And so, just wanted to get his perspective on that, what that is like to go through, some of the things that he's seeing from this team. So we talk with him, about that, obviously catch up on how things are going with him professionally and with the family and many other topics. It's always insightful and just very pleasant talking with Jordan, so we appreciate his time, and I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. I do want to let you know, he's calling in from Germany. The connection isn't great, so there are a few spots where it's a little bit choppy. I did my best to kind of clean it up from an editing perspective, but I wasn't able to clean it all the way up. But just know that if there's little spots that are choppy, they're momentary, and so just stick with it because the vast majority of the quality is just fine, and you'll be able to make out everything he's saying. But that is coming this week on Podcast on the Brink, and before we play that interview, I do want to let you know about SeatGeek. As you know, getting tickets online can be far too complicated. There are hundreds of sites and varying levels of reliability, and that means it's hard to know who to trust. But that's also why SeatGeek is the way to go. SeatGeek pulls millions of tickets into one place so that you can easily find the seats you want for a price you're willing to pay. There is nothing quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. Indiana still has some really important and notable home games coming up on the schedule. Wisconsin, Purdue. Obviously, the season ender against Rutgers, which will be Juwan Morgan's senior night. So if you want tickets to see any of those games, SeatGeek is the best place to go to find great prices. And the thing that you'll find when you go to SeatGeek is that it's designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. So SeatGeek actually searches multiple ticket sites. They grade every ticket based on value. So when you go there, you can immediately identify the seats that are going to best fit your budget, which makes the shopping experience better. And every purchase is fully guaranteed. So you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. That's why I use SeatGeek. I have the app on my phone. It's the easiest way I found to shop for sports tickets, concert tickets, pretty much all types of live event tickets. They've got them there at SeatGeek. And best of all, listeners of Podcast on the Brink get $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. So just download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code BRINK today, BRINK. That's promo code BRINK for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets. And now, our conversation with Jordan Hulls. Jordan, thanks for taking the time. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm not doing too bad. Just finished dinner with the little man and the wife, and just hanging out. I've got a game tomorrow, so just hanging out.
So let's start. I mean, that's what everybody's going to be most interested in here. How is the family doing?
Family's doing great. Jackson just turned 2 on the 10th, so it's kind of crazy. Time's flying by so fast. And then baby number 2 is on its way. Aubrey is 35 weeks, so the baby could be coming anytime. So I'm putting cribs together from IKEA. I'm getting frustrated with that, and then doing all sorts of stuff, just getting prepared for the baby. But we're super excited about it. And it'll be a new experience to have a baby abroad for sure.
My daughter is 2.5 now, and she is definitely starting to go through her stubborn phase and, kind of trying to take control of situations. Is Jackson going through that too?
Yes. The terrible twos, I guess, so they say, started before he even turned 2 as far as that goes. He's getting more of a personality every day, and he definitely knows what he wants, and he knows how to ask for it. So he'll be speaking German to us before too long, but Yeah, he definitely knows. He's stubborn like his dad. Let's just say that.
Alex is over here laughing at us because he's past that phase, so he's just laughing as we go through it. So let's turn our attention to basketball. Why don't you before we talk about the Hoosiers, and there's definitely some topics specific to this year's team that I wanted to get your insight on, and that's why we wanted to bring you on here. But how is your season going in Germany?
Season's going well. We started off a little rough, not winning like we thought we could. We got a great group of guys, play really well together, share the ball. We're on a 6-game winning streak in the league, which is really good, and we are currently in a playoff spot, which was our main goal. We got a big game tomorrow against a team who's also fighting for a playoff spot. So it's going well. This is the most successful year I've had in Germany. That was my goal, going to a new team and that kind of thing. So it's going really well.
Very good. Very good. Have you had a chance to keep up with the Hoosiers and how they're doing this season?
Yeah, I follow as much as I can through social media. Is probably where I get most of my stuff, seeing the highlights through Instagram, Twitter, whatever it may be. I've been able to catch a couple games, not as much lately just because getting prepared for the baby, trying to get as much sleep, trying to bank my sleep in as much as I can. See if that even works out for me. But I just through social media and such, but I try and follow as much as I can.
So the first question that I want to ask you, obviously the Hoosiers have gone through a rough patch here, losing 9 out of 10, 7 in a row, right. 4 straight at home. And while your last 2 seasons at Indiana were obviously very successful, your first 2, you went through stretches similar to what this year's team, was going through. I think you guys lost maybe 11 games in a row your freshman year, and then your sophomore year, you guys dropped maybe 7 or 8 to end the season. What is it like going through a losing streak like that? Like, what are these guys going through as they, just struggle to get wins?
Yeah, I mean, we all know how good the Big Ten is. Each and every year, the bottom team can always beat the top team, or those kind of things always happen. But I think it's very mentally draining. At least in my instance, and what I can speak on from my experience is that I came from a winning culture all throughout high school, AAU, whatever it was, and then my first 2 years at IU is all we did was lose games. It seemed like And it was very difficult for me to adjust to that, just because I knew how hard we were working in the gym, and we were buying into everything that we thought we needed to do, but we just didn't get the wins. There were games where we were very competitive and maybe should have won, but still lost at the end. And those are probably more heartbreaking types of losses, because you feel like you did everything right, but at the end of the day, sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and that's just the game of basketball. But I think for these guys, it's there's been injuries as well. I know that's been a huge part of our season, and losing Rob, our PG, who he's our catalyst defensively from what I've seen, and can make a lot of plays offensively, not even having to score a lot of points, but just running the show. Those kind of things kind of hurt us when you have a guy like that go out, and then just fill in different roles and those kind of things. But again, that's also part of the game, and it's for the next guy to step up and do his job. So it's very difficult to say, just because I'm not in the gym with the team or anything like that. When I was playing and people would say things on the outside, they really had no idea what was going on in the locker room. They don't know what schemes they're working on, if they're doing everything correctly or whatever. But the things that you can control, or how hard you play and how tough you play, and the body language that you show when everything's going wrong, right? So I think those are the main things. I think, if you're losing games, that's one thing, but if you're losing games because you're not playing hard or playing soft, that's a little bit different as well.
Jordan, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and it's obviously a different situation because you came in and during a transition period too, going from Kelvin Sampson, obviously, to Tom Crean, and now these players are going from Tom Crean's style to a different style in Archie Miller. And I think one thing that fans have asked me a lot, they point to other examples of coaches taking over different programs and having instant success. And then they also look at situations like what happened maybe with Tony Bennett at Virginia, who's been really successful now, but it took him a couple of years to get things going. How much of a factor do you think the style of play, the adjustment for some of the former players is a factor in kind of Indiana being a little bit slower to maybe grasp some of these concepts? And how much of it do you think it maybe is just, not maybe having the talent that some of the other teams in the Big Ten have?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of things. Definitely, when you get recruited by a coach and you buy into the system that he's recruited you on and what you've been fed, that it's going to be like when you do get to college. It is a little bit, for sure, it has to be an adjustment to the way you're going to play once you get a new coach and new defensive schemes and new offensive schemes, everything. It's definitely going to pose a little bit of a challenge. But at the end of the day, you chose to, like if you're staying on the roster and you're going to be part of the team, it's one thing to, you just got to buy into that system. And of course, there's going to be a learning curve. And we do have young guys still. Romeo's a freshman, Rob's a freshman. We have still a young team. Juwan, he's our leader though, as a senior. I think he's done a good job, obviously. But it takes everybody who has to buy in. I know for us as a culture, even though we were losing, we were still building that culture that we wanted to have. And I think that goes a long way. And I think it does take some time. It's, of course, everybody wants to see instant results, but like I said, injuries, that's going to delay some things, and coaching change, of course. And you just got to buy into all the little things. And that's what's going to win ball games. You're not always going to hit shots, but you can always control how hard you play and the defensive schemes. No, even if they are different, you had a whole preseason also to get those down. So it is a little bit different, but that's just the way it is.
Hitting shots is something that Indiana struggled with, something that you never really struggled with going back, watching you to the early years in high school. I can remember watching and you were making 3-pointers. I think we can all agree that Indiana probably needs to recruit maybe some more shooters going forward for the next couple of recruiting classes, but how much can that be developed within a program? I know Victor is an example of a guy who came in, really couldn't shoot the 3-pointer by the time he left. He's obviously a really good 3-point shooter. Is that something that is just a matter of repetition and getting in the gym, or is it, having the right person to work with you on that? I mean, if you were going to develop somebody into a shooter, what would you be your strategy to do so?
Oh, definitely repetitions. You look at all the great shooters, not everybody has the same shot, same looking shot. But as long as they shoot the same way every time, then you're going to get more consistent results. But you're not going to get those results unless you practice good reps all the time. And that'd be the biggest thing for me. If I'm teaching somebody how to shoot a basketball, you want the same reps every single time at game speed. So you're not just standing still shooting threes in the gym the whole time, where you're not going to get that shot in the game all the time either. But it is something that you can learn for sure. Like I said, getting the reps, at this age, especially if these guys want to go to the next level, play professionally overseas in the NBA, whatever it may be, you usually got to be able to shoot the basketball at a higher clip. And, everybody at the next level is going to be athletic and get to the rim, all that good stuff, but it's the key fundamentals that are going to separate you. So I think those are all things that, especially Coach Schilling, growing up, even in high school, and I got to work out with him a couple of times. He's huge on that stuff, and I know he has great stuff for those kind of things. And it's not like these guys aren't working on their shots. It's not like they want to miss shots. It's not like they, are going out there like, well, I hope we hit just 20% today or whatever, whatever it is. It is a mental thing as well. I know some guys are more. I was not athletic. Romeo can get to the rim almost anytime he wants, and I could never do that. So of course, I practiced my shooting probably a little bit more than he did, but that's just also a learning curve. When you're getting to that next level, you have to develop some more stuff, and anybody can do that as long as you get the reps up.
How important? I mean, when it comes to shooting and being consistent shooting in games, how important is the offense and the ability to get good rhythm shots in the offense? Because it does feel like with this year's team, like there are some decent shooters. Al Durham's a decent shooter, Devontae Green's a decent shooter, and it just seems like they've been so inconsistent. And we talked to John Crispin about this, and that was one of the things that he suggested was, in terms of improving the shooting, do the individual work, but also get more rhythm shots in the offense. Like how much can that and a lack of cohesion on the offensive end affect the shooter at the end of the possession.
That's a great point. Of course, if you have to come down, go through your legs, do a crossover, shoot like a semi fadeaway 3-point shot, your numbers are probably going to be a little bit lower than if you get this off a swing, a skip pass, a driving kick, and an open 3-point shot. That for sure is going to contribute to a higher 3-point percentage. Like I said, I'm not in the gym. I don't know the offensive schemes. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. But of course, that would help the percentage go up. I think getting rhythm shots, it's always better for a guy. Might not be a Matt Roth who can just come off screens and pull a trigger from 40 feet. And be a guy who can get his feet behind him, more like a Remy Abel. Let's say, when he came in, he's going to take a shot where he got his feet behind him, and he wasn't very. He shouldn't have shot one if he was contested, but those kind of things, those are just different types of shooters, just as an example. But once he got a rhythm, he was a much better shooter, and I think if you get that to the offense, that's a great point that you said.
Hey, let's talk real quick about Home Field, because today's episode of Podcast on the Brink is brought to you by Home Field, and at their website, homefieldapparel.com, you will find the comfiest and most unique licensed IU apparel that is available anywhere. Home Field was started by an IU grad, and all of their apparel is designed and printed out of Indianapolis, and now that we are well into 2019 and the winter, turn back the clock with Home Field's 1910 IU Crest sweatshirt featuring an IU Crest from 1910 on a tri-blend fleece crew neck. And this item is really indicative of what they do at Home Field Apparel, because they bring back some really cool old logos that you haven't seen in a while, or maybe that you haven't seen at all, but they are part of Indiana's rich history, and they put them on these materials that are just so comfortable. And the tri-blend fleece material is just fantastic. I've talked a lot about the tri-blend hooded sweatshirt that I wear and love, and have probably worn it more times than an adult man should wear a hoodie since I got it. But it's great. It's got the Bison logo on it. So, go to Home Field, check it out. Lots of really cool, unique Indiana gear, and I think you'll find something there for yourself, and probably something for anybody that you need to buy a gift for. And so you can kill two birds with one stone there. Get something for yourself, get a gift for somebody at homefieldapparel.com. And don't forget to use the promo code BRINK, B-R-I-N-K, at checkout. When you do that, you will get 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. That's promo code BRINK at homefieldapparel.com. Now back to our conversation with Jordan Hulse.
I feel like one of the turning points that I'm just trying to remember back, because obviously I've been covering the team now for 10 plus years, but I kind of remembering back to the turning point for you guys. Obviously Cody was a big deal, but I felt like one thing that you guys talked about a lot was the culture of the player driven program and guys holding others accountable to get into the gym. And how does that come about within a program? And is that a matter of one or two guys saying, hey, this is how we're going to do things, and you're going to do it this way, or you're not going to be a part of the team? And how, I guess, replicable is that to any team or any program? And is that something that obviously we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. These guys could be in the gym 5 or 10 hours extra. We have no idea. But I mean, I guess how do you develop that within a team?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, because it's not always easy being having to be that guy. But for us, we needed that change. We needed that culture change. We knew we had to put in the work in order to be successful, and started off with 1 or 2 guys, and it grew to the whole team. I mean, dang near we had everybody stay the whole summer, because we could all work out together, go to class, get some more workouts in, that kind of thing. So I think the accountability factor is huge, because if you're that guy who can lead by example and in the gym, and guys are going to follow. If the guys don't follow, they're just going to get left behind. And once they're left behind, then their minutes start going down, or they're going to have to seek other opportunities, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of how we approached it as a team. But we had a bunch of guys who were competitors, wanted to work, and so it wasn't very difficult my last 2 years at all. The first couple of years we were losing, and we were all young, so we had to figure it out on the fly a little bit more then. But we still, for the most part, everybody worked pretty hard on their own, getting shots up and whatnot. But it is definitely a thing that needs to happen if you want that culture to change, and it starts with the guys who are the leaders of the team. I wasn't the most vocal guy, but when I said something, people knew I meant it, and I always led by example. So those are little things that you can do as well.
That group that you were a part of was so special. I mean, and we all as fans just enjoyed watching you guys so much. And that togetherness that you guys had, it made you better on the court. Obviously, you guys were clearly close off the court. When that came together, was that something that it was just kind of this, perfect joining of personalities and that kind of happened through the recruiting process? Or were there, conscious decisions that you or other leaders made to pull other guys up who maybe weren't naturally like that? Like, how did that all develop as you went along?
Yeah, I think each team is different. You got to talk to guys differently. Each person has their own, let's say, own way that you can ignite the fire in them. I'm going to talk maybe a little bit different to Will than I would to Christian. I mean, in terms of we need to get this work in, and no slacking here, no slacking there, or whatever. That's just an example. But I think once you find that medium, we just had a bunch of guys who just wanted to go out and just kill everybody in practice. Like, we were all competitors. We hated to lose in practice. And I think the losing, to touch back on that, did really help us form that as well. Because once we lost the first 2 years, and then our junior year, nobody expected us to win. But we got that taste of what feeling was really, of what winning was really like. We didn't want to go back. So that made us even hungrier. And I think that really helped our culture build as well. But it's behind the scenes, man. It's so many things, and that's why I always say, us on the outside, people on the outside, we never know who's the vocal guys in the locker room and in the weight room, on the court and practice. We just don't know. It's always hard for us to. I don't want to judge, might not be the right word, but to just figure out what's really going on. We can always give pointers and say this is what needs to be done, this is that. But Coach Miller and his staff are more than capable and know way more about basketball than most of us. And I'm sure they're doing everything in their power to get their guys ready.
One of the things that we've seen from this year's team at times has been a lack of confidence. And Archie has talked about this. I mean, the guy's just kind of going through a crisis of confidence. And it has felt at times like it's manifested itself in, not going as hard, or just kind of seeming on some nights like the guys just don't have it at all, like the Nebraska game at home. Were there games those first couple years where it felt like that for you, where you guys just didn't have it, and maybe a lack of confidence, a lack of belief, kind of came out as not necessarily going through the motions, but you just didn't quite have the same edge? And if so, how did you handle that internally as a team?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I don't know if we didn't have anything to lose. Like, nobody really expected a lot out of us. Yeah. But, maybe this team for sure has more expectations than we did my first 2 years. But that never really got to our heads. Like, we went into each and every day knowing we got to get better today. Like, we didn't go into each game thinking, oh, we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose. Like, we thought we had the right game plan, right everything. If we execute properly, we can, be competitive and get this win. And for sure, there are times where, things weren't going right, and, our body language might not have been great. But we also knew that if we showed that too many times in the game or whatever, the next day in practice was going to be absolutely miserable. So I think we had a little bit of toughness in us. And as far as that standpoint went, we were always going to fight to the final buzzer. And regardless of what the score was, because we knew what the consequences probably would be if we didn't at least leave it all on the floor, which is how it should be, right? I mean, you can always control how hard you play, and and those kind of things. You can always control what shots you make and whatnot. And if the other team's just better, then sometimes the other team's just better. So that was kind of how it was for the first 2 years, for sure.
You mentioned toughness there, and that's kind of felt like another thing that this team has struggled with a little bit. Do you think toughness, mental and physical toughness, how much can that be developed, and how much does that need to be recruited? Meaning, how much do the coaches need to identify that in guys before they come to campus, and how much can that grow once they get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. Some guys, it's just built inside. They've had it their whole lives. It's just how they play. They got that chip on their shoulder. Others, they kind of learn their way into it by, if preseason or whatever is just the most most difficult thing they've ever done, that's obviously going to build some mental toughness as well. So I think you can build your mental toughness, no doubt. You just got to be willing to buy in. And again, that's where accountability from teammates also plays a huge role. Like you mentioned, a player-driven team is way better than a coach-driven team. Just because, if you're getting on a teammate, that why would they not want to respond to their teammate? It's way different coming from your teammate than the coach. And I think that'll go a long, long way. Especially, there's no reason to wait. If you're young, it doesn't matter. I remember Coach Crean and Coach Buckley and the rest of the staff. Why wait? Why wait until you're a junior or senior to be a leader? If you're a freshman and sophomore and you can lead by example and do what you need to do, then that works just as well. I'm not saying that I was the only leader on the team either, because that's definitely not the case. I think there's always more than one leader on a team. It can be a whole group of guys holding each other accountable.
Jordan, one of the unfortunate, I guess, byproducts of Indiana's slide recently has been there's been some, and I don't want to mention anybody by name, but there's been some things written about Romeo Langford and whether Indiana's kind of wasting his season because he's in all likelihood only going to be a one-year player. But I feel like you're qualified to maybe talk a little bit about this since you're in Indiana, Mr. Basketball. You're from the state, as Romeo is too. I mean, even if Indiana's team success this year isn't what people had hoped it would be, and even if Romeo does go off to be, a top 5 pick, leaves and goes to the NBA after one season, do you still view the fact that he came to Bloomington as something that the program can use to build upon in the years moving forward, or is it just, or do you have any thoughts on those that may say that it's a wasted season because Indiana didn't reach its goals from a team perspective?
Yeah, it's definitely not a wasted season. I think any time where we can get a Mr. Basketball, an in-state recruit, especially of his caliber, those only come every once in a while. And for us to be able to get a guy like that, and who seems like a great kid and, great for the program, that's definitely not a waste of a season by any means. And I'm sure he's learning a lot of different things this year than he's never had to experience before. He was a winner in high school, so now he's facing a little adversity on the losing side. So there's always things that, no matter what happens, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is that you can always learn something from it. And for him, if he does leave and becomes a top 5 pick, all the best for him. That's great. But for us as a university, as a program, I mean, what would we be without Romeo this year? Like, what would people say then, right? It's just it's not just Romeo on the team either, and that's not what I'm saying. It's not all about him, but he's a big part of the team, and I'm sure there is a lot of pressure with that. He was obviously he's a way, 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 way bigger prospect than I ever was, but that we are 2 Mr. Basketballs and from Indiana and went to Indiana, there is a certain kind of pressure with that as well. But I'm sure he's doing everything he can. He doesn't want to lose games either. I mean, these guys are in there to work and get better. And so I would say to say it's a waste season is just silly to me. It's not like we can just come back and win some games. I'm maybe more of an optimist when it comes to that kind of stuff, but why not be? There's no reason to really be negative, I don't think.
Agreed. Playing at home, your last 2 years, you guys only lost 3 games at home. I mean, and really, it seemed to kind of set the stage for the next few years where even when the team struggled, in Coach Crean's last, 3-4 years, we were still kind of a program known for, hey, you bring a ranked team into Assembly Hall, we'll find a way to beat you, to feed off the crowd. And obviously the crowds were legendary. And this year, one of the most frustrating things for fans has been the lethargic play at home and just the inability to get wins. I mean, Indiana's lost 4 straight games at home now. When you guys were upperclassmen, how did that focus on winning at home manifest itself? Was that something that you guys really talked about, really focused on? Like, we have to protect home court. Did you approach those games at all differently? And what do you think might be missing for a team that really seems to struggle to find a comfort zone at home where, you would think that they would be even more comfortable?
Right. Yeah, we definitely wanted to protect home court, especially in the Big Ten. It's hard to go anywhere in the Big Ten and win on the road. So if you lose games at home, it's really tough to be at the top of the standings. And for us, as far as approaching each game differently, I don't think like X's and O's or anything like that was different. But of course, when you have 17,000 people rooting for you in the gym, there is a home court advantage in that. And I think they really fueled us in a lot of different wins that we had. But, to play, obviously I grew up in Indiana. I know the tradition. That's all I've ever known. And to not have any energy or play with a lack of urgency or anything like that, I mean, that's just unacceptable. Of course, like I just said, I'm an optimist, but those are kind of things that you can control and that just really aren't acceptable. If you're out there with terrible body language, it's just a little bit different story, right? Yes, injuries are unfortunate. Yes, you're going to miss shots. Yes, all this, but to not have energy or anything like that is kind of it is different to see. And like you said, some Indiana fans are upset about that, and that's something that you need to protect home court for sure. So it's a little bit difficult to see that, but hopefully they can figure something out with that.
So Cook Hall opened after your freshman season. So did you guys practice in Assembly Hall all through your freshman season?
Yes. Yeah, all my freshman year practiced in Assembly Hall as far as I can remember.
So one question that I've gotten asked a lot over the past few weeks, and I think I kind of know the answer to it, but I want to ask you and get your opinion on it anyway. How much does that change things at all? Like when you practice at Cook Hall where you're not going to play your games and then you go to Assembly Hall to play your games, did you notice any type of difference? Obviously the success was much better, but that was in part because the team was better. Was there any less of a comfort level because you weren't practicing there every day?
For sure. But actually, now that you're mentioning that, we did practice in Assembly Hall almost all the time throughout my career, I would say. We used Cook Hall definitely in the summertime. During the season, though, we would use Assembly Hall as much as possible. I think for that reason, which for me as a shooter, the background is it's different for sure. And, you want to get used to where you're going to play. So if I'm remembering correctly, we did practice in Assembly a lot of the time. So maybe that is, but to shoot the percentages, is it going to drop that drastically? You're going to practice in there for sure the day before a game. And then on the road, you do the same thing. So it can it make a difference? Yeah, maybe, but that depends on the shooter, I guess.
Yeah. That's kind of what I thought. And I think they practice a lot in Assembly Hall now too. But I've gotten that question. It's one of those things. It's like, why are we losing home games? So people just start searching for, for explanations.
For sure, yeah. Which I understand completely. Yeah.
So one last question. Want to be respectful of your time. Really appreciate you taking so much time to talk with us.
Oh, no, you're fine.
From a player's perspective, when you look at, kind of, people like me and Alex that, cover the team and write about the team and do post-game shows and come on here and try to analyze things, what kind of things do you think are fair to criticize players for? And what kinds of things do you hear, do you see that you think are unfair to criticize players for?
Definitely fair to criticize effort, lack of enthusiasm, the passion, kind of like what we were just talking about, all the things that you can't control. I think it's a little unfair to assume that these guys aren't working hard in practice, or if these guys just don't know what the heck they're doing, which sometimes is the case. Everybody makes mistakes out there. You're going to have turnovers. You're going to have this. You're going to have that. But I would say it's unfair to say that, the coaches and the players aren't trying their best to win basketball games, even though it may not look like they're playing their hardest or whatever on the court, which I think is fair to judge that. But as far as getting these guys ready and stuff like that, like there's no reason why they shouldn't be working. At least I can speak from my own experience that we were definitely working our tails off. Like we prepared every single game, no matter if we played North Carolina or if we played a preseason tournament against a Division II team. We prepared each game the same way. And for us, we were working our butts off. And when people would say, if we came out and lost a game that we probably shouldn't have lost, yeah, the guys are going to make mistakes. Maybe you're not as focused as you should be, but it wasn't because we didn't have the opportunity to be focused, or we didn't have all the tools to be as prepared as we needed to be. It's more of you can get upset with the guys if they're not playing hard and those kind of things, which for me, I'm a big stickler on that because you can control that. Focus on what you can control, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yep. Well, Jordan, thank you as always for coming on here. It's always insightful talking with you about basketball, and good luck with the rest of your season. And of course, good luck with everything that you have going on at home, because things are about to get pretty hectic.
Oh man, yeah, I appreciate it. Anytime, guys. It's always fun talking hoops with y'all.
Thank you, Jordan. Good luck. Good luck with the rest of your season, and more importantly, good luck with the second kid, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, Alex, do you have any advice? Since because I haven't gotten to that point yet, Jordan's about to. Any advice on what changes when you go from 1 to 2 and the big adjustments?
Everything changes. You have to experience it on your own. It can only any words that I say are not going to adequately prepare you. So I think you have a good strategy of trying to get some sleep in now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how well that goes, but yeah, we're excited. But that's all I've heard is that it's just an adventure is the best way to put it.
Yes,
pretty much.
Yes, it is. Cool, Jordan. Thank you, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Podcast on the Brink. We always appreciate you being here. Remember to join me and my co-hosts for more IU basketball talk at assemblycall.com, and visit Alex over at insidethehall.com for complete coverage of Indiana basketball. If you want to support Podcast on the Brink, here is the single best way to do it. Tell anyone you know who loves IU hoops about us and suggest that they subscribe. Podcast on the Brink can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else podcasts are available. Tell your social media followers, email your friends, text your family members. For weekly discussion about IU basketball, they need to be subscribed to Podcast on the Brink. We'll talk to you next time. Go Hoosiers.